Welcome back, everybody. It's been a little bit. Haven't been doing episodes every single week, but coming back into that rhythm, and this will be a great one to start out with. Today, I have a colleague, and his name is Scott Levin. He's an attorney, former litigator, and now mediator. Also, and this is a fascinating aspect to the services you offer, Scott, a certified divorce financial analyst, ultimately important when doing mediation agreements, and founding partner with San Diego Mediation and Law. So Scott is coming to you today from sunny San Diego, where I bet it's blistering at this time of the morning, isn't
It
it?
is. It is. Yeah. It's a warm one.
Yeah. We're experiencing a little heat wave. So I want to tell you why I know Scott, and then we're going to launch into the discussion. I know Scott because we're both part of the Amicable Divorce Network. So, quite a cool segue from the title of this show, The Amicable Divorce Expert. But the Amicable Divorce Network is a group of people who have decided in their careers, family law professionals, from attorneys like Scott, mediators like Scott and me, financial analysts, divorce coaches, therapists, anybody who works in the area of family law. We have signed on not to go to court. We have signed on to commit our work to the most harmonious result that could possibly happen between two spouses getting divorced. And that's quite a leap for an attorney, isn't it, Scott?
Yeah. I took that leap in 2015. So I decided that I was just not going to litigate another case that at the end of that year. Um, and it's a hard transition. A lot of my colleagues, they litigate and then they mediate. I'm not a fan of that. I think you should pick a lane and kind of specialize and kind of choose which route you're going to go. But it is a uncommon practice to be a family law attorney that doesn't go to court.
What's it like being a litigator? What's that motivation, especially in family law, where the word fight should be outlawed, as far as I'm concerned? But what's it like being a litigator?
Well, first of all, you can make a lot of money. I mean, I have a case that I'm mediating right now with um, very high conflict, and they've been in litigation for a couple of years. And mom, in this case, makes very, very little money. Her legal bills are 110,000. She doesn't make that in 3 years of working. So
Wow.
what attorney ran up 100K knowing that, but she's so high conflict that I'm sure she calls her all the time, is emailing, and is just being a big part of this lawyer's existence until you can get off the case. But that's a lot of money on a case that should have been settled for 5K.
But why do attorneys use the word fight? I mean, we are committed to the opposite, but why do litigating attorneys fight when you're talking about somebody's family?
Yeah, it's just the nature of the battle. So the dirty little secret about family law litigation is that there are very few trial attorneys. Like, you hear the word trial attorney, that's a personal injury attorney, that's a trial attorney, a business attorney that really specializes in going to trial. That's what they do. There's no such thing in family law because almost all of the cases settle in the end. So you dance the dance of the fight or of the court battle, and then you settle at the end. Um, I just think that the nature of litigation is so combative. It's a us versus them mentality that it's just very hard to have an amicable separation process when you're going through the court system and each have individual attorneys. It's less common than people would think, even if they both spouses are on the same page. Hey, we want to figure this out. It just doesn't happen that easily once you get the courts involved.
Yes, because I have inherited cases as a document preparation company and as a mediator in which they left their two attorneys. Either they realized that it wasn't worth it in terms of how the dialogue was going, or they just couldn't afford it. They had just zeroed out of money. But I listened to people saying, well, our attorneys told us we're not allowed to talk to one another.
Yeah, that
And
they
these are people who have children who have to bring them to school and go to the
that
soccer match.
ridiculous.
What do you mean you're not allowed to talk? That's crazy. But
I
it's
mean,
for the
how is
money.
that said? One of the benefits of mediation that I see is like the relationship rebuild after divorce between co-parents. I mean, how, if you can't talk because your attorney is so polarizing, how are you, the rebuild is probably never going to happen, to be honest with you.
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point for people to think about.
But
So,
attorneys are not supportive. I mean, this attorney in this case I was just mentioning, we have a settlement agreement. It took longer. I mean, it took about 5 sessions to get it. They've been in, that's, 5 weeks versus they've been in court for 2 years. So it's a lot faster than the alternative. But I mean, she was not, the attorney was not supportive of the mediation. Before the first mediation, she called me like an hour before and said, I represent this client. You can't meet with them. And I said, well, then tell your client, because they're the ones that made the appointment with me. But if you don't want her to meet with me, then tell her not to. But she didn't want to put that in writing because, that's not kosher. So, I mean, they're just not supportive, even after 2 years and $100,000 and getting nowhere, but just a huge pile of fight. She still wanted to protect her client from a settlement.
okay. There are really, really good attorneys, and including yourself. And I'm very lucky to know many of them in the Los Angeles area. And then there are other attorneys that just see dollar signs. And so, quick little story from me, and then I want to ask you some other questions. Quick little story. I was at a bar association evening seminar, belonged to a couple of them. Evening seminar, we all have dinner, very casual. You're sitting around a table with people you don't know, and then you have the seminar. I was sitting inches from two attorneys. They didn't work at the same firm, but they had apparently known each other for a while, and they were apparently seasoned attorneys. And so the female attorney says to the male attorney, hey, I got a great new case in. And so the male attorney shakes his head, yes. And she goes on to say, I just got a call earlier today from opposing counsel who's representing husband. So she's got wife, he's got husband. And he said to her, get ready. We're going to paper you to death.
Hmm.
I
Who
was
is in that
in
one?
shock. I was in shock. So there was a pregnant pause. Nothing else was said. And I said, look, I don't mean to be eavesdropping. We're sitting on top of one another. I just am interested. How did you respond to opposing counsel, who apparently was going to be paying for her client's bills, right? There's money. And she said, well, what are you talking about? How did I respond? I said, well, you were just asked to work in such a way that lots of money was going to be made in billing with the term papering to death. How did you respond? And she said, well, what should I have said? I said that it's unethical, that I cannot put my client's health and welfare on the line just to make money. And these will apparently be frivolous motions that you're going to be filing if you already know you're going to paper me to death. Anything like that. And she just stared at me. And I said, look, I'm not an attorney. I'm a mediator and a document preparation company. And this is why I have a job, because
Yeah,
we can't treat people like this.
uh, what I experienced litigating is that even if I, and I have a lot of friends that litigate. It's not, they're not evil people or whatever, but you can't control the litigation. One attorney cannot control it. It depends on the two parties. It depends on the other attorney. It depends on the court. There's so many unknowns. It depends on what's happening in the interactions between the two people as time goes on, because they're getting billed. Nothing is happening. Their anxiety is getting raised. They have a hearing 5 months from now, but they've already been living like this for 9 months. Like so their interactions start to become more conflict filled. So one attorney can't control how the process is going to go. And that attorney that you just mentioned has no control. She's going to have to respond to whatever comes her way. And, there will be a high conflict sort of situation, it sounds like.
Yeah, but just to say, hold the phone, even though your client may be paying my bills, just to make money, I cannot put my client in a position of imposition,
Well, I assume that it wasn't just to make money, just to like
hurt,
drown, just
fight.
to make it painful.
Again, the same thing. I cannot, as a professional representing my client in the best of my ability, allow her to be treated in a way that's completely unnecessary. I mean, we got to speak up. Well, they have to speak up and say things like that, but she didn't. So,
Yeah.
anyway, let's go on to your wonderful work as a mediator and that it feels so good. All right, so I have some questions for you. Um, you are a mediator. So people quite often say, well, how many mediations do you think this is going to take? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, 90% of my clients, we finish the work of the divorce process within 3 months. So,
Wow.
um, yeah,
Wow.
so
That's
I
impressive.
so I prefer to, like, I'm someone that when I'm engaged, I don't want someone to have a meeting with me and then have the second one in 7 weeks and then another one in 9 weeks. That's just how you defeat a mediation. You have to be willing to engage and continue the conversations, even if they get sticky and uncomfortable, or complex, but you have to be willing to engage. So, I meet every 7 to 14 days for 90 minutes, and my clients are committing to stay on that schedules unless they have vacation or sickness, obviously. But yeah, it's important to that's how you set up a successful mediation, is to stick with it.
Okay, so I've never heard anybody say this before, and I'm really interested, Scott. When you initiate the mediation schedule with your clients, do you say that to them, that this is the schedule that I feel and I see works the best, and you put out that 2 week schedule or however you said that?
Yeah, I mean, some clients we are scheduling in advance. Like at the first meeting, we'll also schedule our future meetings. Sometimes we're just scheduling the next meeting. But at the end of our meeting, I am sorry, at the end of the meeting, we're talking about when we're going to come back to do it again.
Okay, this is really great. This is great because I find that in my mediations, there's always one person that wants to know when's the next one. And that's great. I love to see that. And then you can see how engaged the other person is. Well, I don't know. Just let me see. I don't have my calendar. Okay, everybody has their calendar.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously a tactic, or not even a tactic, but when one person isn't wanting the divorce,
Mm,
slow walking the process, putting up resistance. I mean, that happens, all the time. And some of those people need like time to get through that, but I don't want to waste people's money. So if someone comes to me for a meeting and then I don't hear from them for 7 weeks and we come back again, it's almost like you're starting over at
yeah,
that second meeting. And
yeah.
if that happens like another time, I'll say, this isn't an idea. This isn't an ideal process right now. We got to get on track. But mediation is also about each couple, each family, and sometimes there's circumstances that would make that a requirement, I guess. But
Like one person travels for work and that's just what they have to do. So they'll look at their travel schedule, things like that.
yeah, but I mean, although we do a lot of Zoom work, right, so like it's not like they pop open Zoom in their hotel room, probably, but yeah.
I guess so. You're right about that, but I get it just depends on the type of work, how involved that is. Can you really break focus and do
Yeah,
this, and then
totally.
are you in another country? What time zones are we
Yeah, there's
dealing
always
with?
circumstances. Yeah, like I have
Yeah,
a lot of physician clients where like they're literally like when we schedule, we're scheduling out like they're looking at their calendar
for
and
surgery.
booked every single day for like 3, 4 weeks. So,
Wow.
you got to
Yeah.
slip in our appointments.
How sensitive do you feel it's important to be about the emotional roller coaster that the spouses are going through to catch their breath to process? Do you look at that? Do you pay attention?
I mean, I experience it all the time. I'm not sure how I guess Judith, I could ask you, I mean, like, I experience it, but I don't have the same playbook for every case. Like sometimes I'll react in a way that it just seems more natural and appropriate for the situation versus another couple where that same action might be a triggering event that takes us down the wrong path. But I just had a mediation that left in person, and mom in this case is a much higher earner, and had a cheating incident. Dad did, and she's just not able to get past that. She wants him to be punished, and I just kept on having to remind her that the law doesn't punish anybody for that sort of action, but she's really emotionally committed to that. What do you do in that situation?
Kind of the same thing. This is a no-fault divorce state that we live in. There's no damages because I've had a couple clients want to just charge back like $100,000 damages, and I'm like, unless your spouse wants to pay it, there's no room for that discussion in family law in California, unfortunately. In terms of the emotions of people, well, first of all, you're right. You live it, you see it. You can't be a mediator and not experience the look on their face, the fact that they say, I need a minute. Can I just walk out for a second? I need water.
Yeah,
They'll let you know that they're struggling. And I appreciate that because I want to be sensitive to that. Here's how I have defined my role in family law. I walk on an emotional landmine for a living.
interesting.
It feels like that quite often because you have to be so careful what you say, how you say it. Your position as a neutral is extremely important because you need them to trust you, that you're not siding with the other person.
Yeah,
And that then allows them to be comfortable expressing themselves. What do you think about that?
I mean, once one person thinks you're on the other person's team, it's over pretty
Yeah.
much. They start treating you poorly, which obviously impacts your interaction. So that, like, you know right away when that's happened, and that's a killer to a mediation. So committing yourself to that impartiality is key. Um, I mean, I just try to, I am who I am. You don't get robot Scott when you hire me. That's what I tell people. So someone says something funny, I might laugh, but someone says something sad, I might cry, but you're not getting robots. So if I have something to say, I'm going to say it, and you just know that I could care less. I've been doing this 20 years. I am not rooting for anyone at any time. I do not have a rooting interest. I just am trying to help two people resolve conflict. And when I say something, it's only with that in mind. And if people are going to be triggered by that, then they probably were going to be triggered by that, whether
By
I was
something
there or not.
else, right? Yeah, that is really, really hard to keep your own emotions in check if you're working in the immediacy of the moment. It has happened. Somebody said something funny. Maybe they didn't even mean it. I don't know, but it struck me as funny. And then I apologize. I'm so sorry.
Well, I mean, we were talking. I have a client right now. This is not the first time, but they buried a son, a teenager, and they were talking about they bought plots, um, like where he's buried. They have 4 other plots, but they owe money on them. And so the discussion, we had to talk about, is one of them going to own those plots? Are they going to co-own them?
God,
And it
yeah.
was very, very it was very hard discussion for them. I mean, but you know, those are the sort of things that we are confronted with.
So true. And I'm also happy that you brought up, I'm not rooting for one person over the other. And I want to make that clear to everybody listening. We have no skin in the game. We don't make any more money. We don't get part of the pension. We're not getting support. I
Yeah,
mean, we really do. Those who love mediation, we live for the moment when forgiveness might happen on its own. Excuse me, I just hit the microphone. Where there's a moment of such great authenticity, where something has finally been stated from the heart of one person that completely changes the trajectory in a really positive way. I
totally.
know we live for those moments, but I'm not on one side or the other. I may feel badly about one person's position, but the deal is to get people talking in a way that's constructive, where they can come to the resolution that works for them. There's a language between spouses that we have no idea about.
Exactly. The history, they know what each other
Yeah.
is going to say before they're going to say it. You know,
Yeah.
one thing I'll say is that yes, there is in mediation and family law, you are confronted with challenging problems and difficult personalities that are going through a tough time. But I actually, you know, as much negativity that might be out there, I see there a lot of generosity between spouses. You know, a lot of you know, honoring the relationship, the history, doing things that the law doesn't prescribe. So you know, it's inspiring to see that people in that situation can actually oftentimes go above and beyond. And you know, when people are looking for a settlement that might be outside of you know, a 50-50 split on assets or something, I mean, they going to court is not how you accomplish that. It's, you know, it's being collaborative and trying to just talk it out in a mediated setting.
And do you also feel that if you keep people talking long enough, there will be a point generally where there will be a meeting of the minds. Everything's been dumped out that they needed to dump out, and now what's left is their feelings, where they really want to go with this. What do you
Yeah, I
think?
mean, I do feel like there's I can tell when people are ready to get down and do business. Like if we're at the third, fourth, fifth meeting or whatever it is, I can feel like when they walk in that, oh, this is a meeting where we're going to get a lot done. Like they're ready to be done with this. And something you said earlier, Judith, is really true. It was, and I just want to highlight, you made a really, really smart comment. You know, our clients as mediators and ourselves share a common interest. They should want to see someone like me as little as possible and then never again. And I have the same hopes without being rude. I want to see them as, you know, let's meet, let's meet, let's meet, let's do a deal, let's get that filed, let's get it approved by the court. And if I never hear from them again, that means that, you know, that the deal is still intact. So we're aligned in that way. Litigators do not have that alignment.
You know, that's right. I forgot about that aspect. So we as mediators can take the discussion, the negotiation to a certain point, and if we are fortunate enough to even change the way they communicate and think about the deal, they may not call us back. We can take it from here. We'll let you know what the deal is. You can write it up and file it. Love that.
Oh no, I meant that like we finished the divorce, but then after the divorce, I don't hear from them.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. I have when I was litigating, about 60% of my clients would call me back after the divorce for a problem, and it's much less percentage in mediation.
yeah. Well, I read something when I went through your website and you know, was just updating myself. You said mediation is an art form,
I
and that
think,
really struck a chord with me. Explain what you mean, please.
you know, I think that the mediation is such a buzzword right now. Or probably has been for a while. It's not the mediation process that's the golden ticket, you know. I mean, first of all, litigation is imperfect, mediation is imperfect. It's about, you know, making decisions to get out of the divorce process somewhere where you don't want to get stuck. But it's really the mediator, I think. That's the key. It's, you know, I'm watching the Olympics right now. I go swimming twice a week. I don't go as fast as the guys and gals that are in the Olympics, right? But I'm doing the same stroke. No, it's about the person. It's their energy, it's their ability, it's their experience, it's their competitiveness. I mean, it's about the person, not the process itself.
When you say the person, you mean the mediator.
Yeah.
Okay, I completely agree. I just gave a workshop to Southern California Mediation Association a week ago a week ago today, and it was orchestrating the cacophony of conflict. And
Hmm.
we compared the mediator to an orchestral conductor.
Interesting.
I had a partner doing it, and we had just seen Maestro, the movie about Leonard Bernstein and how he became conductor of the New York Phil. He gets a call like 5 a.m. in the morning. The conductor before him just got sick, and there was a concert. Leonard had to go in, do a rehearsal, nail the gig.
Wow.
And we were talking about, though, conducting the mediation versus conducting the orchestra and the influence that the conductor has. So you can have two different conductors. You can have Leonard Bernstein and you can have the conductor who preceded him. And the same piece of music is going to be performed by the same musicians in the orchestra, but it's going to sound different
Totally.
because of the energy, the approach, how the conductor wants it to sound. And so we looked at the mediator in comparison and said, it's the way the mediator's energy presents itself from the time you open that door and greet people in your office or open up Zoom and greet people on the screen. It's how calm you are, how have you prepared yourself for the mediation, and how good are you at changing the way the parties communicate?
Totally.
Because that's the other key, is how do they communicate?
I agree completely. Yeah, those are all great points. You know, it's about even like what the office looks like. How is it set up? Is it set up with a big boardroom where like they're going to sit on opposite sides and it's all
Mm.
full? Or are there, you know, M&Ms and Diet Coke and a small room where everyone's going to sit around a table and feel more intimate? I mean, it's just the vibe. I mean, like I said, you don't hire Robot Scott when you get me, so it's my vibe, what I am going for, but it's the experience. I provide the same experience I would want to receive if I were on the other side.
Nicely put. Nicely put. I love that. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that you are also a certified divorce financial analyst. Who doesn't need that in a divorce mediation, where there are a lot of assets? So do you perform both roles for the same couple?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, when we're coming up with the settlement, certainly I'll be doing the math and helping them with that. But if there is a calculation that has any gray area where there might have to be decisions made that would impact the outcome, I'd rather refer that out to a neutral CDFA so that my impartiality isn't like, you know, put into question. But
Okay.
most of the time, yes, I'm doing all the calculations. I'm a math person. So that's like really second nature to me. But yeah, like so for RSU, like division, restricted stock units, that's just a calculation. It's based on math. I'll do it. You know, where if there's a more Marsden calculation to see, like, you know, how the two people own a home that was owned before marriage. There's some gray area because you don't always have the figures. I might refer that out. It just depends.
Okay, so just to let people know, Moore's Marsden, which he's referring to case law that affects a formula used to divide the real estate, to divide a home.
Yeah, and some of these things require like you don't have every number pinned down, because it could be, you might need a value of something 20 years ago.
Mm, so
So
complicated.
yeah. So I
Oh my
try to come
God.
in a neutral for that. And I feel like, then I bring them into the mediation to present their findings, and that people get to ask them all sorts of questions, and they're defending the math and not making me defend it, which helps me maintain the impartiality.
Okay, that's really great. I like that. I like that. I like that because you not only understand the calculations of a variety of different financial components, um, but you also, in order to maintain neutrality, can bring in somebody else, but with your knowledge, you can see whether that other person may have missed something and can engage in a dialogue about, oh, I understand that, but what about that? Right? Something like that goes on.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Lastly, how important is getting legal advice before they sit down for a mediation?
I mean, if you know nothing, I'd probably get a consultant to maybe talk with you, but it's more important once the mediation starts. In my opinion, like the first meeting, we're not really necessarily like making decisions, but you should be informed. The mediator can talk to you about the law. It's not really what we're there to talk about, but they can give you some information. But you need a mediation requires proposals and counter proposals. And if one person or both are going to feel shy about making a proposal because they don't know, they feel like they're kind of like flying in the dark, then let's get someone to enlighten them and to give them an outline, like here's what a good deal would be for you, here's a bad deal. And so that empowers them to come to the next mediation with the ability to like make decisions and proposals.
Well, here's what I find quite often. Spouses think it's disloyal to get legal advice, to understand the law of their state. They think it's disloyal. And my position is it is absolutely the most intelligent thing you can possibly do for yourself
Yeah.
is to understand what the law is in your state. Just understand it so that you know when you go to negotiate how far away from the law you are. And you can go far away. If the other person's okay with that, go where you want to go. But at least understand what the definition of anything is so that you can navigate better. And when the other person may give you some pushback, you'll understand why. So a good friend of mine who started out as an attorney and then became a mediator said, look, Judy, when I started out, she said, there's the law, and then there's working in the shadow of the law, which is mediation.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I agree. I mean, that's kind of that's a really kind of paints the picture well.
Yeah, because mediation is that opportunity to freely construct the deal points that work for your family, for both of you, because there's the law and then there's the emotions of the marriage and the divorce, which certainly are the backdrop to the negotiation. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about, especially for families with, kids 8, 10, 12, 4 years old, like, where they're going to be minors for a while. A lot of it, I have a middle market clientele. My clients are engineers and a teacher, or, I don't have a ton of, real estate developers worth 50 million. That's not really who finds me. And for those families, having as much cash flow, having each party, each parent having access to as much cash and cash flow as possible is what's best for the kids. So just trying to formulate settlements that really are setting them up for a successful transition, rather than just saying, oh, let's just have every account and that's your settlement. So it's just more nuanced.
Ah, and you said one thing that I'll kind of finish with. Back to your certified divorce financial analyst hat. And this is something that I learned actually some years ago by a certified financial divorce analyst. And that was what you see as being even numbers on paper. Once you are divorced and you go to your accountants and you
Yeah.
look at the income tax implications, meaning what's going to be taken away from you in that settlement, you could end up with a very uneven settlement. Can you please address that?
Yeah, and that's really what I was thinking to your prior question. How important is it to get legal advice? What I was thinking but didn't say was like, if you're getting legal advice during a mediation from a consulting attorney, that person might say, hey, you have this 401k that's worth 500,000, and you have this other assets that, is roughly the same, but are they the same? What are the tax implications? What in the end of the day, what value will these two assets bring? And if you're just, willy-nilly, I'll take this, you take that, since they're even, that's not really a thoughtful plan. So that happens all the time with people, that they make a deal and the stock was 300,000, but after it got sold, it was 225, so uh, kind of what I like to talk to people about is, let's look at the divorce on day one. Like, how does this affect you guys today? Because that's the most immediate. Let's get a deal. But then let's project, like 4 years from now, 8 years from now, is this a plan that, gives you a chance to sustain?
Understood. Nicely done. Scott, as we are concluding, and this was a great conversation. Thank you so much. I've really
Well,
enjoyed
thank
it.
you.
Yeah. Is there anything I haven't asked you? Is there anything that you decided you really wanted to provide to the audience in this podcast?
Yeah, one thing I'll just say is that when mediators talk about like divorce without going to court, I just want to clarify, a mediator will help you resolve the settlement by, collaborating on to get the agreement. But that's one part of what we do. The second part is we actually execute on all that. So we do the court filing, Judith and I, we do the legal drafting, we do the filing. So at the end, it's a judgment, just like you would have in court, like if you went with lawyers. So it's not like it's not official, it is. And the mediator takes all that off of your plate, though, so that you don't have to worry about making it official.
Thank you for saying that. I think that's important too. And I'll add on top of that is don't file yourself. I know this sounds self-serving, but when I inherit, everybody's going to run into problems. You're always going to get rejected somewhere along the line. You're going to miss something that you should have put on a court form. They're not intuitive. These
Yeah,
court forms are not logical. They don't use the language that regular people use. So you're going to mess up on them. And it's really going to come back to haunt you at the end of the filing. That's when the clerks are going to go back in time and try and match up what you originally filed. Did you file everything right with the end filing? And you're going to hate your life. Please hire a professional. It's
totally.
so worth the money, don't you think?
I totally agree. Even if you're very tight on money and you're young or you have no kids and you want to just kind of do it yourself, it's such a time saver, and your case will get rejected, 2 or 3 times if you do it yourself. That's just what ends up happening.
That's just, yeah.
My
And
paralegal had a brain aneurysm 4 years ago, and she was like my mother, but at work. She'd been with me my whole career. And she wasn't one day. And I was like, well, I have to get someone, but in the meantime, I'm going to look at these forms. I hadn't looked at them in a long time. And it took me a while to get on board, So they're not intuitive, and they'll freak you out, and they'll be frustrating.
that's right. And in this day and age, you have so many options in the route you can take, from the dreaded online company filing, the dreaded internet companies. Some you never even get to talk to them, to us, I probably charge a little less than you, but you're an attorney, I'm not, but still, it's so much better than full-blown attorney representation to do simple filings
Yeah.
that don't change regardless of whether you
I
have an
would call
attorney or a mediator.
Judith every time and throughout California. Do you work only in California or beyond?
No, I'm only licensed for California.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, she can file, get it done, relieve you of that stress, and that's any family law related, like, legal issues she can get started for you, and so it's a big benefit.
Appreciate that, and touche for you too. So not only we'll have this in the show notes, Scott, how they can get in touch with you. You're going to give that, but also we have to give the web address for Amicable Divorce Network, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
amicableddivorcenetwork.com, and you're going to find our names there. And Scott, how do they directly get in touch with you for those people that like to take notes during the podcast?
I mean, I guess my the site is san diego family lawyer.net, and you just I guess Google Scott Levin divorce lawyer, but yeah, san diego family lawyer.net. And I'm happy to talk with people, and to establish impartiality right off the bat. I do my meetings, the consultations are free if both of you join. So, there's no, 45-minute behind closed door conversation with one, because right away that puts in the other person's mind, what did they talk about? Like, why did they talk about without me? So you got to be committed from second one to establishing that. That's what I do.
Okay, that's a nice offer. That really is. Thank you. Well,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Scott. This was an
Thank you.
absolute pleasure. I'm so happy we decided to
Yeah.
do this.
Yes, I appreciate you so much. Nice to see you, and I hope to talk soon.
We absolutely will talk soon. And to everybody listening, thank you so very much. I hope this was beneficial to you. I'm sure it was. Call Scott, call me. We're here to help. But as always, have an amicable day.